your archetypal wheel, picture your watch. And so you have 12 hours on the clock, 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of night. 12 is an archetypal cycle. And you have 12 intimate archetypes. And so you think of an archetypal birth chart, so that when you were born, an archetypal pattern took hold of one per house, that dominates or governs how your life unfolds. And though this is not a class on sacred contracts at all, I can weave something in somewhere down the line. What I am doing is I'm doing an archetype per week on video now that I'm just giving, it's on YouTube, I think it's on YouTube or something. And I recorded the victim yesterday. Next week I'll do the saboteur. So you could just pick up and learn a little bit about the archetypes, and maybe I should go through the wheel too, but that's for another day. But this is part of all the power you cannot see. And that's that you don't realize what's governing you. You don't realize that. So let's jump into the workshop. And in fact, I had breakfast with two people who I love forever and dearly. And one of them is Michelle, and I might put Michelle on the spot for a second because she knows a lot more about what I'm about to say. But we launched into, and she was sharing, you catch up with people. And she was telling me what her son, August, is doing. And he's teaching artificial intelligence at New York University, am I correct? Right, New York University. And that, too, I didn't think to bring that into this, but it is also something that's worth talking about, because I'll start the lecture this morning with, I'll pick up a little bit from last night. I can't lecture without a pen. With trying to comprehend all that is happening around us. Now how many of you have never been with me before? Oh, that's delicious. Okay, but many of you have, and so those who have are very familiar that I start my workshop with the drawing of a building because it helps me communicate to you the multiple levels of consciousness that you're on. But for those who have, we're going to be using those levels differently, so there. So here's your building. Okay, and the reason this is effective, and I actually use this all the time for myself, is that this is an archetypal tool. And this is something you're going to put in your toolbox for the rest of your life. That when you're born, you are this building. And actually, this model was kind of born in me years ago when I was a freshman in college, and I was a journalism major. And I, like many people, came from the belief that there was only one truth, only one set of facts, and that was it. And in journalism, it's who, what, when, where, how, why, and that's what you've got to go get. And so there was only one set of who, what, when, where, how, why. And she had to crack that. And she had to help us see that truth was, here's the operative word, relative. It depended on where you were, da-da-da-da. So now this was my first venture into the truth. That truth was relative. It depends on where you are, what you're looking at. So that it's not actually the truth, is that truth is relative, and the rest is simply true. You're following me? So she said, a building is on fire, and I want 4 reporters to cover the story. You take the north corner, south, east, west. And she said, when you come back, you tell me which of you has the truth. Got it? So now we have 4 different stories. And she said, and which of you got the history of the building? None of us. And which of you got this story and that story? None of us got those. She said, so which of you has the truth? Which opened up what is truth? That stuck with me. It went, and from that point on, I thought in terms of four corners. For the rest of my life, I thought in terms of four corners. And when I would talk to people, I would think, what corner are you standing on? You're on a different corner from me. You're seeing this from a different corner. I could no longer ever think my position was the right position. And what I realized was that liberated me. I'm going to shift gears even to a conversation I had over dinner a couple of nights ago in Phoenix with my cousin, David, Fran, and my cousin's wonderful wife. And my cousin is a cardiologist. And he was talking about the different sources of illness for the heart and what causes this and that and describing it. And he's just a wonderful, wonderful physician. And I wouldn't tell you if he was a bad physician anyway, but he's a wonderful guy. And I love him like he's like my surrogate brother. But when he was talking about the causes of stress that break down the heart, I'm up here, as you will be shortly. He's listing from the first floor overweight, cholesterol, stuff that you are familiar with. And I'm up here thinking, what about the stress of living a deceitful life? What about the stress of lying? What about the stress of planning diabolical activities? What about the stress of having a job in which you create spin to destroy the life of another person? What about the stress of creating fake news? Now, we have yet to take this dimension of activity, choice, our choice, and consequence, and weave that in to the causes of the breakdown of our well-being. We haven't even considered that because we don't even think that that impacts us. But I have come to learn that that is what impacts us. That is the most powerful. And as my ally in this, I turn to science that will tell you energy creates matter. This is your energy, and that is your matter. So your greatest blockage is not wanting to believe this. But as my ally, I have science, because up here, as we will discuss, the nature of God is law. God has set up this universe to work with law, as law. Science is law. God is science. Science is law. God is science. The nature of God is law, not religion. There is no such thing as a God that has a religion. Get that out of your head. That's a belief for the ordinary mortal. You are now no longer ordinary mortals. Now I'm going to hit a pause button and I'm going to shift here. And we're going to talk just for a little bit about the significance of what it means to be alive now. It is, and I've said this and I will say it forever, a privilege to be alive now. An absolute privilege, but only if you get that. I think the part of me that loves history and has studied history all my life will tell you that there have been other times in history that have been extremely tumultuous. World War II, other times. And we've had tumultuous events in, various parts of the world that have erupted. We have the war in Ukraine and Russia right now. We had the Cuban Missile Crisis. We've had the Vietnam War. But none of those events prior to our time, none of them have incorporated every living creature on the earth. None. None have incorporated every single religion. None has incorporated the survival of every living thing on the earth. This is the moment that we're at. We're at the moment, and that is why it is that we are living the journey of transformation. It is actually real. And while you, in this building, illustrates this, that your life has many floors, that once you're born, you're like a building. It doesn't go anywhere. So the only movement from that point on is in the building. But if you go in a building and just for the heck of it, go up each floor and look out the window, you'll see a different view of the same address. So that as you go up, your vista on your life expands. Now that's the purpose of life, to expand the vista of your life. But as you know, with every building, every floor is more expensive. It is more costly to go up every floor. Life is not an inexpensive journey. And I don't mean it physically, financially. I mean that consciousness is a very expensive, risky, outrageously wonderful journey of expansion. It is as risky to open a new window as it is to keep it closed. As it is to keep it closed. It is as risky to wonder, I wonder what it looks like. We were talking this morning with Michelle and Michael and Beth and I were talking about this advent of artificial intelligence, for example, which is up on a higher floor. And that we're creating intelligence to become intelligent, to become an artificial intelligence. And I'm going to let Michelle comment on it because she could do a lot more because she's spoken with her son about it. But I said to Michael, the one thing it will never be able to do is pray. It will never be able to pray and receive inspiration. It will never have a soul. Now, the soul is something arrogance cannot comprehend. Soul is something, as I see with science, they want to do experiments to see if prayer works, and I think, you idiot, you arrogant SOB. They want to put God in a test tube. And that's part of the risk of where we're at. That's part of the risk. On your first floor is the way you literally see the world. It's all the power you can see, not all the power you cannot. And it's really important for us to actually look at that world. Because it's all the power you can see. And what we have to explore is how much we want to see that power. And how much you rely on that power to feel safe. Your bank account, your address, where you live. Now, up on the 10th floor, up on the penthouse is the truth. See, what's on the first floor is what's true, where you live. It's true. Do I live in Oak Park? Yes, that is true. But the truth is, that address does not reveal how long I will live. It reveals where I live, but not how long. Its capacity to tell you about my life journey, my life, is very limited. It only tells you where I'm located and nothing more. It reveals nothing more. That's the limitation of the first floor. That's all. There's no truth on the first floor. There's just what's true from my corner of the building. Are you following me here? And what you need to do is get this. You really need to get this as a working wheel in yourself. So that when you are in all your situations, when you are making decisions in your life, when you're in a conversation in your life, you actually are aware enough to think, I got to get on a different floor. Because I'm now on my first floor and I'm hovered in a corner because I have become insecure, protective, and I'm fighting for my illusions. My teeth are out, my claws are out. And this is all fear. We were talking, I don't know if it was Michelle or Michael this morning who mentioned that screwball Elon Musk wants to go to Mars. And as far as I'm concerned, is go. And beat it. But what really motivates him, and what motivates all these people, is they get, and this is the shadow side of this building, or the basement, is this is a real wild, mystical question. This is the kind of question that would be posed to you in a graduate school in theology. And it's a question that's meant to spark thought and maybe never have a conclusive answer, but engage you in forever wondering the cosmos. Is there a finite or infinite amount of power that a human being can access before risking insanity? Now let me ask this differently. Let me pose this differently, position it. In theology, there is the belief, and it is a very strongly held belief, if not a deeply honored one, that when you make the journey into the soul, okay, so now we would be up on a high floor, when you realize you are more than matter, that this is your case, and you're holding something precious. That the exploration of what is precious in you, all the power you cannot see, you really need an escort. You need an escort. Because you're going to go through layers. First, you're going to go through your emotional layer and all your emotional garbage. And you're going to think that's the soul, but it's not. It's just your emotional trash. It's your baggage. It's your wah, 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 wah. It's your wounds. It's your shoulda, woulda, coulda, why not? And it's all this trash. And you got to get through that until you realize it's trash. And you got to haul out the trash. Oh, I'm so hurt. I'm so... Oh, get that out of you until you realize your life is not about your wounds. Who isn't wounded? And I'd say to you, as soon as you find me someone who's never been wounded, I'll talk to you. Really, not kidding, not kidding. Life's not about one-upping each other on how wounded you are, which support groups are. It's about, I've had this profound journey called the wound. I've had this profound journey called the wound. I'm going to speak to you. If you come to me and say that, and then you talk to me about the profound journey, I'm all ears. Complain, I'll never listen to you. Tell me about your journey, I'm all ears. I will be your teacher, your student, your spiritual director. Because now you get it. Now you're exploring, this happened to me. It felt so unfair, I had to deal with unfairness. It felt so unjust, I had to deal with the consciousness of injustice. It felt so horrible. I felt so abandoned. All the forces you cannot see. You can't go in there unescorted. Because then you clear that out, and what's left? Oh my God, it all prevented me from love. I wouldn't love anybody because I felt I was owed. And while I felt I was owed, I took it out on the world. I'm going to sue you. I'm owed money because I was hurt. I'm owed this. I'm owed special attention. And I'll pull out all this stuff and throw it at you. See? And it's not till you get all this and you realize I'm not owed anything. What it has done is it's caused me to make other people suffer. See how much I've suffered? Until you clean all that out and you realize, oh my God, all it's ever done is stopped me from loving, from resentment. Now we're at the door of the soul. Can I come in? Can I come in? Whew. I have not wanted to love because I've been so filled with rage. Because no one's loved me. Only to find out I have this warehouse. If I use this love, all it does is come back. That's how this works. This is the wealth. This is the wealth. But getting to that, this is the difference between the love of power and the power of love. Now we get to the power that is you. Getting to that place is the journey. You can't go in there unescorted. Is there too much power that you have that will cause you to implode? Is there too much earthly power a person can have that actually causes them to implode? Question. This is the question I pose to you as students of theology for the weekend, which is there a limit to the amount of power the human being can command, can cope with, can take that power and say, with this power, what is the ethical world I need to be in? What is the moral content I need to grapple with? What are the consequences to the whole? Because God is law, and the law is what is in one is in the whole. Now I make decisions that reverberate throughout the whole. How does this power affect my thinking? Now that I have all this power, you cross the dark Rubicon. I am power. Now I battle eternal power. I will never die. I am immortal. I confront immortal power. The great moment of insanity, where all my decisions become based upon my capacity to outrun the power of God. Therefore, I become an atheist. There is no God. There cannot be God because I am that power. Do you see how it goes? It is an archetypal journey. And you can tell when someone is now on that journey and where they're going. And that's the journey in the building. There's this upside of it, and there's the bottom side, which you have never been exposed to, because I haven't wanted to reveal it, because that's the kind of girl I am. But all the power you cannot see includes all the dark power in the world. Not just the goody-goody stuff. It includes all the dark power, and it includes your temptation into that dark power, which is also what you need to confront. Because darkness comes to call, and that's real. When I was in college, I came home on a break, and I'm sure this is just as true for you, but the thing that the moments, the experiences, the events that actually hit me, like this morning with Michelle, which I will always remember. That breakfast is now, and I am holding you to New York. I'm telling you, I will track you down like a bug on a June bug. I came home and I read an article in the Chicago Tribune, which used to be a really good paper. It was front page, and in journalism, you put your lead story headline, and then your eyes automatically go down. So here's the best story. Right in the column, right underneath the headline. So the story right underneath that is second best. And this is where that story was. And it was about a man who had escaped a demonic cult in the city of Chicago. Now, reporters always, and it's too bad, take on these stories with a chip on their shoulder, because they don't have the courage to take on these stories with, tell me what that was really like. I mean, with any kind of attitude that this could be real. Instead, it's like the skepticism, because they don't want to look stupid, foolish, or whatever. Or what's worse, they're terrified that it might be the truth. So they think their skepticism, their arrogance, is their protection. Pay attention to what I just said to you. So this man who was in the cult talked about that the people who had the most power in the city of Chicago were the ones who were the members. And he said, I can give you names and you will recognize every one of them. So I'm going to hit a pause button. And I'm going to go back to the scripture. You've got to hold on to my tails when I teach. And there's a reason why the great spiritual master says how difficult it is, that getting through the gates of spirituality is easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle. There's a reason why all of these, how many times you hear stories like Jimmy Baker and all of those people and the priests, etc., that just as they ascend in power, and the gurus and etc., that they get to a certain height of power and they can't make it through the eye of the needle, that transition. They can't make it through that level. Because if you understand the archetypal journey, that's when you're most vulnerable. This is the whole meaning of the story of Jesus in the desert. Now that you have, and you're on the precipice of the most power, you are also at your weakest, just as you're about to be your strongest. And that's when you will get your biggest challenge. And if you know that, you almost can put it on your calendar. And that's why you go, here, you almost know, am I on that floor yet? Should I expect that challenge? If you know the archetypal journey, you almost can say, damn, this is right on time. All the power you cannot see. That's when the most vulnerable, I am the most vulnerable. No wonder this showed up now. No wonder, instead of flying down here saying, oh my God, why me? I'm a good person. Stop it. You get up here and say, brother, but hell, this is right on time. I am one breath from being the strongest, and I am not going to blow this. I've worked too hard for this test. For this test. So, in this article, this man says, all these people are the most powerful people in the city of Chicago. We're going to emphasize power. They get to the place where they don't want to release power. Power becomes the object of their every choice. Now we're going to just dwell on this. And of course, the reporter was full of nonsense questions. Really? You're not going to tell us? And he finally said, do you know what the devil's greatest weapon is? It's not like spewing pea soup. Do you remember that? There's a movie where this kid spits pea soup all over the wall. Yeah, The Exorcist. It said, it's not that, because that actually does happen, and it is extremely rare, extremely. It's more, he said, the darkness relies on your arrogance. That's its greatest weapon, is arrogance. And the human, there's no such thing, really? It doesn't exist, really? So there's a level in our ascension where you get so full of yourself that you think you can name the rules of the game. Instead of getting to the place where you realize, it's my job to learn the rules of the game that have always been here. Not to name the rules by which I wish to play so that I can get away with whatever I want. But rather, I need to become aware that my system knows the rules of the game. My bio-spiritual ecology follows the laws. I am governed by the law of balance. When I exert myself too much, I collapse. If I jump, I fall. No matter what I do, I am subject to the laws of nature, both physically and spiritually, metaphysically, the mystical laws. For every choice I make, I set in motion a consequence. That is called co-create. I co-create. If I co-create, if I see that if I raise my voice, if I choose to raise my voice to someone, I create the response. That just doesn't happen. I am co-creating that. If I choose to raise the temperature of my attitude, you may not know it, but I will observe. Now, if I observe an attitudinal shift in a close relationship, why wouldn't that work in my business environment? Why wouldn't that work on the outside of the walls of my business? Eventually, you have to expand the view of your power, to go beyond what you do in your personal room, to recognize every choice I make, what is in one is in the whole, influences the whole. You may not want that to be the truth. You may want the truth to be just true, that my attitude just affects my bedroom. But if you run at that speed, it's like, I want you to come to me and say, I'm very ill. And I will say to you, I have medicine. But it's not going to work at the perfume level, which is what you lead. It's just toilet water, so take it and it's going to make you feel better for 10 minutes. But it will never cure you, because you can't handle the perfume level of this. And you need the perfume level to get you out. So there it is, too bad, oh well. You're the one who chooses whether you can handle perfume, cologne, or toilet water. Are you with me? I think today, and for decades to come, none of us will live to see, nor will our children, and I suspect not even our grandchildren, will live to see the outcome of the chaos that has been set into motion. On the first floor of life, people take everything literally. So they'll say something like, it's this person's fault. It's that person's fault. And people go to the lowest common denominator. Because it's easy people want a tactile response to everything. This is why this is happening. This is why, if those immigrants hadn't been allowed in, and this kind of garbage that people think down here, and they actually think that that's the reason things happen as they do, kind of thing. As I said yesterday, things unfolding in the physical world are the caboose on the train, and I want you in the engine. So this is something, another jewel you put in your pouch that will be the truth forever and ever and ever. This is an impersonal universe. There's nothing personal about this universe. Nothing. It doesn't belong to you. It wasn't designed for you. Nothing in this life that happens is personal. You can no longer say, what a shame that happened. Because nothing's personal. You can no longer say, all those innocent people. Because that assumes that only guilty people should have anything bad happen to them. You can never look at anything and say, oh, it's such a terrible thing. How do you know what terrible is? What vantage do you have of anything? How do you know? From what view of the balcony of karma are you looking? On the first floor, we measure everything by whether it's pain or pleasure. That's it. By whether we're hurt or whether it's expensive. We have a very, very small scale upon which we view things. Agreed? We rarely are taken off the planet to see the long view of karma and the evolution of the species and where it's going. That view is rarely given to a human being. Agreed? Agreed. So, knowing that as we ascend, we get out of, all we're dealing with here is the result of what's really going on. We have to get out of this chaos. And what is some of the clues we have? Because all we have are clues. What are some of the clues? And what some of the clues are is that we have to turn to the laboratories that each of you have. And that's your physical body. Your bodies are laboratories. And they are indicators of the changes of evolution and the messages of evolution that are coming to all living species. And one of the clues is that you have become multisensory. That is a clue. That is a shift. You are now multi-sensory. So you are now no longer a five-sensory being. You're a multi-sensory being. Now that's a very, because down here, you see the world through your eyes, your ears, your touch. And when you're on the first floor, that's the real world for you. And if you really focus on it, the real world for you is just what's in front of you. Just what you can hear. It's limited to the room you're in. It's not what is being created in the energy world and coming into form. You're on the caboose of the train, and you are deciding everything in your life by what has already been created, instead of turning around and looking at the whole train and saying, what is coming to, what is in the atmosphere? What energetic patterns do I need to work with? Now, the reason I'm going to emphasize this a lot, is because during my years as a medical intuitive with Norm, I went through stages of learning how to be a medical intuitive. And I want to emphasize, I never wanted to do this. But here's where I think God takes care of fools and little children. In discovering I had a genius for something I had no interest in, and then a passion for something I have no skill at. Isn't that good? But my passion was always to be a great fiction writer, so I tell myself, if I do this, will you let me be a fiction writer? So all my ambitions, all my fantasies went into fiction. It was like the dumping ground for my ego. And I'd be like, all right, I'll do these readings. But this is where I imagined myself. However, when I went into medical intuition, I was a blank slate. I never took a class in anatomy, never took a class in anything, never wanted to go near blood, never wanted to go near sick people, never wanted anything, never wanted to teach, never wanted anything. So it was like the universe sculpted me. So when I started to do readings, I had no idea how we worked spiritually. Just, I had an unfaltering faith. That's what I had. That's what I knew. That I knew the other side was intimate. So the universe is two things, impersonal and intimate. That, I knew it was intimate. I did not yet know how impersonal it was, and that was its skill. I still believed at that point in this off-planet male God. I still held to that. I was a Catholic. All of that was going to fall apart as I did readings. As I did readings, everything, all my Catholic fiber fell apart. All of it. Just wrenched out of me. And one of the teachers, I will say, who's responsible for this, is teaching on my reflections class next month. Is this February? No, next month. Matt Fox. He was a professor of mine in graduate school. And every one of his classes, my eyeballs, I felt like what he was doing was yanking me up as if into the cosmos, into cosmic thought for the first time, which is why I want to take everybody up to that altitude. And you realize you're shaking. All those years I was burdened. Thoughts that are not true are like weights in your brain. They're like weights, and you're like carrying them around, and when you yank them out, you're like, whew, wow. I mean, and it really is light. So it's light, love, and law. It really is light. You see with the light, and the light has vision. And that's how you become visionaries. The light are like, whew. And that's how I think I became so good at it as an intuitive, because it was whew, 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 like that, light. Because I was more light. I wasn't as burdened by things that simply were not the truth. And I had no fear of that light because I knew there were angels. And I knew I was surrounded, and I thought, well, all right, But as I read people, as I read more of you, I started out here thinking that there was only one cause for why you broke down, and that's the linear world. There must be one reason why you're sick. And eventually, here, this is linear time, hour by hour, and this is vertical. And here, with every time you free yourself, what you're doing is you're making a journey to vertical time. You're making a journey into timelessness. You are literally becoming weightless. Literally. That's literally what you're doing. Every illusion you have is, and here's why I use this model. It is an anchor. You anchor yourself and you hemorrhage. This is how you create the gravity that holds you into something, which is why archetypally, unconsciously, you speak this way. I got to take my power back. I've got to go get my power. You don't even realize you are actually saying, I have to get my power out of that illusion and put me back in present time. You're actually saying, I have to get more weightlessness. And the more weight, the more illusions you have, the denser you become, the more matterized you become. Matterized, the denser you become. The more dense you become, the slower, thicker the laws work. Cause and effect. The more you require, pay attention here, the more you require group power to work the laws. So the more disempowered you are, the more you will seek to weave yourself into group consciousness. I have to join a group. I'll join a gang. I'll join the Proud Boys. I'll join this. I will, and I'll weave myself, and I'll agree to believe what they do. Do you understand? And as you individuate, this is why we've emphasized self-esteem and empowerment. As you become more empowered, you will choke, you will die if you don't break away. And you retrieve your wiring, and you start to verticalize, perceive on your own, get up the floors, take your own consciousness. If you return down here and you go to the group and say, you can't believe how reality really works. What? They can't conceive, and you're in the bog, and you are in bog consciousness. You are in bog, and you have a billion eyes looking at you, all believing the same thing. What? And you've got to get out. You've got to get out. And you think, oh my God, they all believe the same. What Jung called herd mentality. You've got to get out of there. You're in the bog. We all have bog thoughts that bog us down. At one of my bog thoughts, only Catholics go to heaven. I thought, I got to get out of here, right? Okay. God cares about abortion. Oh, stop it! God's a man. Stop it! Stop! Stop with the off-planet God that's going to come rescue us. Stop it! There is no off-planet God that looks like us. Stop it! No. No. Stop it. All of these are illusions. You can still have Christmas, you can still have your holidays, but stop it. Stop it. You don't anthropomorphize the cosmos. I want the whole cosmos to look like me. Really? Okay. This time we are in is a time where all those myths are cracking up, which is why so many humans are cracking up. And I'm not kidding you. This is why so many humans are wandering. They're in the vast desert because they think that they can go on their own, make their own rules, decide they don't need morality or ethics, break away from the cosmos, decide there is nothing up there and nothing down here, I can do whatever I want. That they're like psychic renegades. And these are the ones that are ripe for possession. Not the classic, but possession of depression, darkness, possession of psychic free radicals. Say collective psychic free radicals that gravitate around the unprotected psyche. Psychic free radicals are conscious. They're the conscious waste products of human debris. When you sneeze a dark thought, when you have a judgment, like how stupid, and that's one of my many, and you don't say, oh, stop. When you realize all of that's an act of creativity. All of that psychic debris goes into the atmosphere. What is the law? Energy must become matter. And it finds its way, psychic free radicals find their way on what law? The law of magnetic attraction. And it finds its way to our energy fields. And you can become an absolute magnet. Think of a Christmas ornament, an absolute magnet, like glitter, for psychic free radicals that aren't yours because they have to get used up. And when they get used up, they come running through your system into matter. You matterize them. And you find your choices. You might find yourself thinking, I'm so frigging depressed. I just feel so dense. I feel so heavy. I can't think straight. And you'll go through a few days like that because you're disposing of psychic free radicals that aren't yours. Or if your system is really, if your soul is really vulnerable, if your system's really vulnerable, it could lay you out on depression for months. And it's not clinical depression, it's psychic spiritual, psycho-spiritual depression. It could cause anxiety attacks. It could cause suicide. Are you with me here? This is an organic universe. It follows the laws. It follows the laws. There's reasons why mystical teachings of all traditions, mystical, not religion, I said mystical, have taught, pray for protection, keep your field conscious. Keep your field conscious. Pray for protection. Keep your field above the fray. Keep your field above the fray. Lead me not into temptation. Keep me above the fray. Lead me not into illusion. Keep my choices conscious. Keep me loving. Keep my choices with love. Love or not love. Grace or not grace. Keep my choices conscious. There's a reason for that. Keep your, I'll tell this story. Guys don't need a break, do you? I don't care what you need. I'll tell you, when I was, years ago, I had an encounter with somebody that was working on my house. It was a very negative encounter, very, very negative. But there's a man, and you probably know his work, and he was wonderful. He used to be an Irish priest named John O'Donoghue, and then he left the community. And I had the privilege and pleasure of knowing him. And John, I knew after the conference that I was going to go home and see this man. And every time I thought about him or whatever, I would get gritty because I went here thinking, how could this happen to me? I'm just this, and I've never stolen anything. The way you talk to yourself, the way you feed your ego, the way you feed righteousness. I'm a good person, so how could a bad thing happen to me? And what he said to me was, you are not strong enough to be around evil or darkness. Now that threw me a curveball because he was hitting me with a high mystical truth. A high mystical truth. That darkness has no respect for education. In fact, it uses it. Darkness has no respect for how smart you think you are. In fact, trickery works the best against someone who's arrogant, which is why the most protected person is the most humble. The most difficult person for darkness to trick is the most humble, because you don't want anything, because you're not ever flattered by anything, because you can't be tricked. because you're not insecure. Humble and insecure don't go together. You're not afraid to be judged. You know what? I am not looking for your approval. I don't need your approval. Humble is not poor. Humble is that nothing of this earth matters more to me, than the well-being of my soul. Not my life, not my body, but me. You've achieved that inner reverence. And so what can the outside world offer you that would get you to compromise that? What can the outside world do? Not much. Not much. So it just made sense.